Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Miller here with your Algebra 9.4 notes from Big Ideas here. Solving quadratic equations by completing the square. So here, we're working on solving quadratic equations by completing the square, obviously, and finding and using the maximum and minimum values there. So a couple warm-up questions here for you to get you started here. So again, finding the product here. So expanding this out using your quick little formula for any time we have two terms that are inside the parentheses and we square that, or foiling it out. So again, you're writing out both of these. So you have 2x plus 3 in parentheses times another 2x plus 3 in parentheses. But there's a little, obviously, I'm going to use the little cheat. So the little formula cheat for this form is take the first one and then you square both of them. So you get 4x squared. Signs are positive, so we're going to have a positive. Multiply these two together. So 3 times 2 is 6x. And then you take that 6x and you multiply it by 2 because there's two of them. And you'd get that if you foiled. So 6x times 2 is 12x. And then take the 3 and square it. So 3 squared is 9. Now, obviously, if there was a minus sign in there, this would be minus, and that one would still be positive. So these are our perfect trinomial squares here. Which, again, factoring, looking for that. And again, I always like to break it down. I always start all my factoring this way. After I look to see if I can take anything out of all the terms, I can't. Again, looking at my signs, positive tells me I'm going to have both of the middle term, so I'm going to have both minuses. First term is made up of x and x. Last term, and again, this is kind of the hint here. You always get like kind of, not always, but you're looking at, oh, I get two numbers that are exactly the same that add up to 8, but when I multiply them together, I get this 16, so it is 4 and 4. Versus like using 8 or 2 or 16 and 1, and then we get our condensed. So, answer. So, well, nice little warm up here to get us going because we're going to kind of be looking at this here. So for completing this square, we're going to have some expressions that are the following. X squared plus a bx. And again, this is coming from our quadratic, our standard form of our quadratic. So they're just going to give us this two in our expression. When we have this, we can complete the square by adding a constant c. That's this part right here, this constant c, adding to it to make it the standard equation so that it is a perfect trinomial squared. So, practicing that. So this first one is just turning it into a perfect trinomial squared and then write the expression as a square of a binomial, which we'll clean up there. So what is the value here to get us to a perfect trinomial squared? Now, we kind of just did this one because we had the x and we had the 8, so you can kind of like cheat and say, oh yeah, we just kind of did this one, except for I just changed my signs here. Here's the little rule, though. How we get the middle term, you take the middle term and you divide it by 2, just the number. So I take that number, 8, you're going to divide it by 2. That gives us an answer of 4. Then you're going to take that 4 and you're going to square it. And that will always get you your C value. So 4 squared is 16, which we knew it was 16 to begin with because of the last question that we just did in our warm-ups there. So here we have all together x squared plus 8x plus our 16. And again, we're going to write it as an expression of the square of a binomial. So our square of our binomial, we'd just be checking it there would be this, factoring it down. So that comes out to x plus 4. Again, and then if you're having a hard time, again, I'll just add this also. This is what the second one would look like. So you got the first one's from the x, last one's from the 16 that get us back to 8x, and then here is our binomial squared. So practicing that. That had a positive sign. This one has a minus sign. You do bring the minus sign along, ladies and gentlemen. So here, it is minus 12. We divide it by 2. That gets an answer of minus 6. Then, again, even if you don't bring the minus sign along, because remember that minus 6 is going to be in parentheses when we square it, that gets us 36 for our C value. So we get x squared minus 12x plus a 36. And notice all of our perfect trinomial squares, ladies and gentlemen, will always be plus C. You'll never have a minus C on the end of it. So it always has to be a plus C. So then here, just cleaning it up. So again, and I'm just going to jump right into it. This time it's going to be a minus sign in the middle, an x, and then the square root of that, which is 6, which actually is right there. The minus 6 pulls it in. Just like this is the positive 4, pulls it in. So let's go ahead and do this third one together, and then we'll let you do the last one here. So third one here. So again, same process. Take the b, divide it by 2. So that is the b. So I'm taking that, and if you want to change it over to decimal, that's fine, 1.5. Take that 1.5, and we're going to square it. So if we are using decimals, that's going to be 2.25. Again, that's my C value. So putting it back in my equation, we have x squared plus 3x plus 2.25. And again, my binomial squared is going to be our x, and then it comes right from here. It's a positive 1.5. And if you have, you want to do the squared of the fraction, remember that would be 9/4. So if we square this 3 over 2, the square goes to both, so it becomes 9 over 4. So you would have 9 over 4 here, and then you'd still have your 3 over 2 right here. So please take a moment to answer that last one. All right, so rewriting the following equation and completing the square here. So we're going to kind of break this apart here, ladies and gentlemen, and attack it on both sides. The completing the square is going to happen on the left side. What we do to the left side of an equation, remember, we always have to do it to a right side of an equation. So for example, if we wanted to move the 15 over, we'd have to subtract 15 from the right and then subtract 15 from the left. Here we're going to use these and solve them by completing the square. So we're going to complete the square again. So going through your process here. So, and some of you will start to do this mentally, so you won't have to write it down. So we'll have, and you'll start to see it. Oh, what's half of this? Half of this is 8. And even if you forget the minus sign, that's okay, because you're going to square it anyway. So it's going to turn out to be positive anyway. So it's half of 8. And then take that 8 and we square it, whether it's a positive 8 or a minus 8, and we get 64. So some of you are going to start to see, okay, let's complete the square. So I'm completing the square, minus 16x, add 64. And what we do to the other side, because we're adding 64 to the left side, we have to add 64 to the right side. Because we have to keep them balanced, have to keep them equal. If I add the 64 and I don't add it over here, they're no longer equal. All right. Now, what's nice about this is that we're getting it to those binomial squareds. So we know this is going to come out to sine is a minus. So don't forget that. So that's some of the positive parts about writing that there, having that part down where you do your minus 16 divided by 2. That's your minus 8. What's nice about having that written down is that that minus 8 goes right in here. And then obviously the x first. And that all equals. And then we'll just go ahead and add these here together. So we get 15 plus 64, which is going to be 79. Then at this stage, we can just take the square root of both sides. So square root, and I get x minus 8 is going to equal, and again, just like we practiced the other day, when we're solving these equations from this point, you get a positive and a negative, whatever that square root of 79 is. So again, going over to your Desmos here. Calculator. Square root 79. So we get 8.89 or 8.9. Let's just go ahead and go to the 10th at this point. I might ask you to round to the 100th, but we'll just go to the 10th on this one. So 8.9. We get 8.9. And again, two equations. So x minus 8 is going to equal that 8.9. And x minus 8 is going to equal the negative 8.9. So here, obviously, we're adding 8 to both sides. So my x is going to come out to around, if I'm adding 8 more to that, that's going to turn it into 16.9. And again, adding 8 to this. So that was a negative, and I'm adding 8. So my other x is going to be right around 0.9. And there are my two answers. So let's go ahead and just check this one. A little easier to check this one. Well, actually, we could check both of them. It's pretty easy to check both of them on the calculator today, actually. So if I add 8 to my answer, so that plus 8, there's my answer. So we're taking that, and again, with decimals, you can copy and paste. So copy, take that answer, and we're squaring it. Plus, again, I'll just going back to my equation. Whoops, minus 16 times that. Minus in there. Minus 16. Open up my parentheses. Again, pasting that number in there. And again, decimals kind of cut it off with the paste. So we're exactly really close to 15. So it is correct because we're cutting it off with that copy and paste there, which would have worked better. I think actually, if I go like this instead and hit answer and answer. Now it works out perfectly if I use the answer button instead of the copy and paste. Because it's remembering, oh, this is what you had there. So, beautiful. Take a moment to solve this one. This one's a little easier here, ladies and gentlemen. So take a moment to solve that one. Working on this one together here. So again, completing the square to help us solve. So even if there is a fraction over here, that's fine. Whatever. We're going to complete the square. So again, keep it in your mind here that you're going to take that minus 5, divide by 2. So that is, if we're going to square that, that's obviously 2.5. 2.5 squared is going to be 6.25. So when I'm completing my square, we get x squared minus 5x. And then again, it's always going to be positive, and then 6.25. And again, I got 6.25 by just squaring 2.5. It's kind of a common one if you're in math. So I didn't need to use my calculator there. And what you do to the right side, you do to the left side. So I'm going to convert this just because it's 0.75, and it works nicely with this question. And we're adding 6.25 to it. So cleaning this up, again, here is what we're throwing in. So it is that minus 2.5. So actually, I'm going to switch that over to minus 2.5. So minus 2.5. And that quantity squared is going to equal, and that's going to be a grand total of 7. At this point, this is why we want to complete the square so we can get this form right here so that we can do the square root and start to solve. So we get x minus 2.5. And again, some of you, we've done quite a little practice the last section and this section of setting up two equations. So some of you are going right into, writing these in right away. So this is going to come out to, we need to do the square root of 7. I don't have that memorized though. So square root of 7. Again, I'm going to just go to the 10th. So 2.6. So it's right around 2.6 as a positive. And again, the second equation are negative 2.6. And again, the reason I can round here is because we're just doing one little addition to our problem here. So we can wrap that up real quick. So here we're adding, again, 2.5 to both sides. Same over here, adding 2.5 to both sides. So x is approximately, because I did round that answer. So we get 5.1. And then over here, when we add our 2.5 to both sides, we get x is approximately, let's see, that's going to be a negative 0.1 for our two answers. Now, this one we are going to do together because it takes all of 3 seconds if you are recognizing what's going on. So even if you went through and you found your completing of the square here, ladies and gentlemen. So let's say you go through, which I wouldn't want you to do this, but we'll go through, we'll learn. So here, half of 5 or half of 10 is 5. So we're going to get, and some of you might even jump to this. So 10 over 2 is 5. That's a 2. So some of you might even start jumping right into this. So this turns into t plus 5 squared is going to equal. So I have a minus 36. And unfortunately, that was 25 if you jumped it. So we're adding 25 to both sides. Actually, you know what? Let me slow down because I know I'm probably going to lose some people. So we went like this. We went t squared plus 10t plus 25. I don't want to lose anyone. Equals a minus 36. Then we do this. So it became t plus 5 all that equals, and again, we had to add 25 to this side. When I add 25 to this side, I still have a minus 11. Our next move is the square root. Taking a square root of 11 is not going to give me an answer. So this turns out to be a no solution. Now, the reason I said you don't have to take this too far is because I knew that this was 25, and 25 wasn't going to get me into a positive number. If I change this, though, where I will get a positive number on this side, then we're good to go to continue. But we got a negative number still on this side, so no solution. All right, solve the equations by completing the square. Round your solution to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So here, just continuation of completing our squares, practicing our completing of our squares here. So I'm looking at here, and as you practice these, they get a little bit quicker and easier. So I have a minus 2 over 2. So that comes out to a minus 1. So completing my square, minus 2x as a minus, this is going to be a positive 1 because that we square, remember. All that equals 3. And again, I added 1 to the left side. We got to add 1 to the right side. And then again, some of you will jump right to this part. But remember, we got to add it. So don't forget to add the square to both sides. All right. And then, like I said, some of you will jump right to this part where it's that minus 1, that quantity squared. All that equals 4. And then we're taking the square root. So we get our two equations. X minus 1 equals a positive 2, and x minus 1 equals a minus 2. So over here, adding 1 to both sides, we'll get x equals 3. And adding both 1s to both sides, and it's going to be a minus 1. And again, we can take both of these answers for checks and throw them back in and make sure they're correct. Why don't you take a moment here? Actually, no, we'll do this one together because it's a little different form. So this is not a perfect square here, ladies and gentlemen. Perfect trinomial squared. Why? Because if I take half of 10, that's an answer of 5, and 5 squared should have been plus 25. So this is not perfect. So we are going to adjust this. So when we solve these by completing the squares, we're going to get rid of this number here. So we're going to move it to the other side to get it out of there. So here we will do m squared plus 10m. I am going to complete the square, so I'm going to go ahead and do my plus 25 equals, I moved this over, so minus 8, minus 8. So I'm moving that minus 8 over, but remember, we're also adding the 25 to complete our square. Now we're in a good position, so now we can go into m plus 5. That quantity squared is going to equal, and we just clean this side up here, so that comes out to 17. Now we can solve it. So square root of both sides, m plus 5 is going to equal, and I don't know the square root of 17 off the top of my head, so square root 17, 4.1. We are going to go to the hundredth on this one, so 1, 2, so 4.12. And then our second equation, m plus 5 equals our minus 4.12. So we're going to get an m that is approximately So I'm going to subtract 5 from that. So I'm going to do that on my calculator here, just make sure we do it all correctly. So go ahead and enter and then subtract. Oops, not twice. Subtract 5 from that. I forgot to answer. Then subtract 5. So we get a minus 0.876. So a minus 0.88. And again, benefit of keeping it on your calculator there, rounding correctly. So we get our minus 0.88. And then over here, we're subtracting. This one's a little easier to do mentally. And we're basically just adding two negatives together. So that's going to be a minus 9.12. And again, I have this 0.88 on my calculator already. So we'll go ahead and check it. So answer squared plus 10 times the answer plus 10 times the answer and minus 8. Oops, that's right. We moved the minus 8 over. Equals a minus 8. So we move that over. So right there comes out to our minus 8. We are good because we move that to its opposite side. Take a moment to answer this third one. Just leave it there for, I guess, a moment. All right. Now, last one. So, a couple things that we can do here, ladies and gentlemen. We want to take out multiples here. So I'm going to start to clean this up by dividing this whole side by 3 because there's a multiple of 3 and everything, and I'm going to divide this side by 3 as well. So I'm reducing this all by 3. So it just really has an effect on this side. That's still going to be 0. So we're going to be left with g squared minus 8g plus 27 divided by 3 is 9. All that equals 0. At this point, now we're back into completing our square by moving the 9 over and completing that square correctly. So we'll get g squared minus 8g. And again, this is where I'm moving that out of the way. So I'm going to do a minus 4. And again, it's going to be that minus 4. So I'm going to put that into this equation right now. So it's minus 4 squared. So it's going to be positive 16. That's going to equal, and again, I moved the 9 over, so negative 9. I added the 16 to the left side, so I'm going to add 16 to the right side. And then we can clean that up, and it cleans up to grand total of 7. And we are back to g minus 4 equals, and we had 7 earlier, so just going out to the 100th, I think it was 2.65, and g minus 4 equals a negative 2.65. And then our g comes out to, adding that, that's going to be 6.65. And over here, our g will come out to 1.35. So always simplify it down when it's equal to 0 here. Make life a little easier for you. So take a moment to answer that last one. As always, ladies and gentlemen, if you got any questions, please let us know. Thank you.